Okay, we're good. Okay.
Shay here. I just want to make a note from something that I've observed. If it's possible, I don't know what devices everyone are using. I don't know if you're using a computer, Mac, an iPad. If possible, if you can place your notes in front of the screen without blocking your camera, so that when you're reading your questions or your remarks, it looks like you're literally looking into the audience and not looking down to read your notes.
Right. So what I do is I have it on my screen. I put it as a Google Doc, and then I have you not full screen, but like on half of my screen, so I can still see that you're all there, but you're not covering my text. So I would recommend that for anyone who's new to this.
Sherry and I did a trial run this afternoon.
Yeah, but I didn't make this screen smaller. I like that idea, Jordana.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's weird to not be looking
Correct.
at the people.
Yeah,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good idea. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm going to mute myself and just
Okay.
call Ariella.
Yep, we're here.
Thanks, Linda. I'll make this announcement again when everybody else comes on, but since I have all of you on here, so for everyone who is speaking tonight, who's asking a question or making any remarks, you can leave your cameras on, but make sure that you mute yourselves when you're not speaking, and remember to unmute yourselves when it is your turn to speak. And of course,
I'll do it now.
oh, you didn't have to, but yeah. And then everyone else who's not speaking, like me and the rest of my colleagues, we'll just take our cameras and our mics off.
David, you're not speaking, right? So we can,
Oh,
you're muted.
See how good I was at not
oh
speaking?
yeah, you were. So you're not speaking tonight?
No, I'm not.
So
Okay.
you could do stop video you want us to do for you?
I can do it.
Okay, fine, great. Whatever people can do on their own, it seems to work the best.
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh, so we have two Rabbi Davids. So
Change him to
No.
Mark Haroff. I had to give him one of my,
okay, I'll
So
change
just, yeah, Renee.
I was gonna.
Wait, I'm seeing double now.
can you do a rename?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I
You
got
have the
it.
same haircuts.
There you go.
Yeah. So-
Mark, yeah, there you go.
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Hi there.
How
So
are you?
Mark, welcome, Mark. I'm Linda Scherzer. I'm the director of the CRC at the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. And I just very quickly, because I did ask Mikie Sherrill to join us at 5 of the hour. So I assume you have your script, so you're
I was on
good.
last week.
Yes, same script, exactly, same script. The only thing I want to say is that after your question 2 of the Congresswoman, 2 and 4, but when you first for question 2, after she's answered her first question, you'll just jump in and introduce yourself and your organization, and then go into the question. So no one's going to introduce you. You'll just, when she finishes her last answer, you'll just say, "Thank you, Congresswoman. I'm Mark Peroff with the American Jewish Committee," and then go into your question. And then for the next question, which is question 4, you'll just thank her and go into your question. Obviously, you don't have to introduce yourself again.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
Okay.
The script I'm looking at, Jordana Horn, is she not going to be participating?
Yes, Jordana Horn Gordon is here. Oh, I see. I
Just the
understand.
first one, yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just made the executive decision that instead of Jordana introducing you, and this goes for you too, Mark, the other Mark, welcome, that you're just gonna introduce yourself,
Oh,
if that's okay. With some.
is
what's
anyone
wrong?
hearing feedback? No, I'm hearing like a large.
Buzz.
Yeah. Oh, it stopped
It's
now.
gone
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so instead of Jordana, and Mark Zamek, saying this to you as well. And this is for the second half, because you're actually going to be asking the questions of Rosemary Becchi. So after she, she's going to be introduced by Ariella, I believe. I'm just waiting for her to join. After she introduces Rosemary, Rosemary's going to give her opening statement, and then Jordana is going to thank her, introduce herself, ask her first question. Then it goes to Mark Peroff, who's going to introduce himself, and then you, Mark, introduce yourself as,
I'm assuming you got on, Mark?
Yeah, I'm on now, but I think they think I'm going to be here at 1 second.
Okay, and I actually see Congresswoman Sherrill has joined us, so I want to say hello and welcome. I don't think she's muted, but I don't see her. Maybe she just-
Ariella's dialing in. I just to be clear, I'm only here for the first part of the meeting,
Oh,
not the second part.
Oh, okay, well then, in that case, Fran,
Yeah.
I guess you need to, then you'll have to flip that with Mark. Is that okay?
Yeah, so it's the same questions.
Gerard, can you update that on your end so that you know? Oh, actually, you know
Yeah.
what? It doesn't even, you're not spotlighting them, so it's
Right. I'm just
okay.
I'm just making
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
we spotlight the candidates.
right. So
during Q&A.
that's fine. Mhm,
Okay,
that's
so
fine. Never mind.
Fran and Mark from Northern New Jersey, all you need to do is ask each other's questions. So Mark, you're going to be asking the questions that have been assigned to Fran,
okay.
and we
Vice versa.
vice versa.
But
Is
I
that
don't
clear?
have all the I only have the ones that were my questions.
I think there are two questions that we both have the same
The
questions.
same questions, number 3 and number 5.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I sent it to you. If you need me to resend it again, I'm happy.
No, I have mine. I just didn't know that Mark's were the same. That's fine.
Hi.
Okay, hi Ariella.
Hi.
So I guess the only last thing, yeah, you were the last person that we were waiting for. So you're going to be introducing Rosemary Becchi in
Oh,
the
okay,
second.
yeah, your name showed up.
Sherry?
She's
You're-
talking to Mikey, I think.
She's on.
Oh.
She's
She's
on.
Okay,
on-
yeah,
she's on
somebody
with
from your
Mikey.
team has it for you, so hopefully you'll be able to.
I muted her. It's okay. So she'll just have to unmute herself.
Okay, so Ariella, you're after the slate's going to come up after we say thank you to Jordana's going to say thank you to the Congresswoman. Slate will go up, and then you will know to introduce her when you see the slate come down.
And the
Fine.
music stops.
And
Yeah.
the music. Yeah. When the music stops, that will be the cue, similar to Sherry.
Linda, remember there's music? Do
Yes,
you want
I
to see?
do.
Do you want to see this live?
Yeah. Do you need it?
Yeah, just share it really quickly, just for
Sure.
like 2 seconds,
Uh-huh.
Sure.
just so everybody.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
then
Thank
when the
you.
You're
music
actually going to
stops.
put that. You're going to put that up very soon. And,
Yeah.
Yep.
And Sherry knows when that slate goes down. You
Mhm.
start the program, introduce Mikey. Mikey speaks, goes to Jordana, and yeah. So Ariella, when that
Okay.
slate comes
Is
down,
Mikey in because she was having problems with the link?
She's not in right now. She was in initially, and then she.
That was
Her
somebody
video
from
must-
her staff. I think we should send her the link again.
Yeah,
oh, from
The central conference link?
the webinar, the
Yeah.
panelist link, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
To Mikey.
I don't have Mikey's. I don't have,
Gerard, can you send it to her really quickly?
Myself. Hang on. Let me see if.
Because she's a panelist, so we won't be able to send her her
Okay,
link.
Yeah, that's
can
right.
I
All right.
send her the
Yeah. Let me
central?
resend it.
Well, he can resend
Everybody
it from the
has-
back end.
Everybody has their own unique link, so you can't
Okay,
forward.
I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what she asked me,
Sherrill.
was the.
Okay. I resent it just now.
you sent it to Mikey Sherrill?
Yeah, Elizabeth@MikeySherrill.com. That's the email that Mara gave me.
Right. So Sherry, you've got to let her know. Oh wait, she's calling me right
Yeah,
now.
it's coming in.
Elizabeth? Hey. She's
Oh.
in
In the waiting
she said She's
room?
in the waiting room?
Then she probably got
Used
the.
the wrong link.
Is she on
window
hold?
Yeah, she's probably on the attendee side.
Oh, no, she must have clicked on the participant link, I'm assuming. We just sent you again the link for her. Okay. Yeah, just forwarded to her. Thanks, Elizabeth. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, so I think
Soon as
let's
she
just
comes
get her
on.
in. As soon as she comes in, we'll say hello. And
then who's ever not speaking will stop their video and mute themselves, please, as soon as we
Yes.
get Mikie on, okay?
yeah.
And
then-
also, everyone who is speaking, when it is not your turn, please mute yourselves. And then when it is your turn, please remember to unmute yourself.
Just be aware, I'll let the music run for 1 to 2 minutes after I broadcast, just so all the attendees can get in, so that way we have a good crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would just ask, because having watched the senatorial forum, when it's your turn, just if you could just sort of be at the ready.
And have your question up.
Yeah, have your question up and yeah, that was not a
What
not a
did
good,
we learn?
yeah, not a great
Yeah.
moment. And also
And if
just
for some reason somebody can't find it, Linda, will you be reading the question?
Hopefully everybody has
well,
this.
I mean,
I'm just creating that backup plan.
yeah, I would say the moderator probably should do that.
Agree.
But does everybody have the question up currently in front of them now? Is everybody ready to read their question? Oh,
Yes.
okay, then should be fine. Because the
I
biggest
have
change,
I
the
have the
biggest,
script for everybody, so.
oh, okay.
The only thing is, Gerard, when you put the music on, my screen went huge again and covered my question. So
You can click over it.
Yeah. you
Yeah, but
can-
that screen is gonna be gone by the time it's
There's-
time for you to do your questions. The
I'm
screen is
sorry?
gonna the screen is gonna disappear. That large screen is gonna disappear. Once he takes it down in 1 or 2 minutes, you won't see it again when it's time for you to do your questions.
Okay.
Okay.
It just
When you
looks
say have your
weird.
questions up, what do you mean? Have it ready to read out? I don't.
Yes, just to
Yes.
read. Have it at your fingertips. That's all.
Okay.
Here she comes.
Wait, I
Yep,
have a
here she
question.
is.
I have a question though. I have a question because
Yes.
Well, can
no,
we just
because wait,
shake
hold
it-
on.
I
Hi,
just
Mikey.
want to welcome the Congresswoman. Hi.
There she is.
Oh, you don't have
yay.
to welcome me.
Well,
I'm in.
Of course we do.
Hi, Mikey.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
The
You
only
look great. Hope you're
How are you
feeling
feeling?
well.
I am. Luckily, I'm feeling well, everyone. So I'm over the stomach bug. Everyone's tested negative. My sitter's doing great. She just lost her sense of taste, but otherwise good. So I'm knocking on wood right now. Fingers crossed. We just
Good.
through our quarantine, which is going to be interesting.
That's fun.
yeah.
That's the word.
Well, we wish you the best of luck
Yeah.
with that. I know that I guess it's a little late for us to introduce everybody. You know, some of us, Mikey, but you know that we have representatives here as well from the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey, as well as the American Jewish Committee, along with my colleagues at the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. And we're just all delighted to have you here. And we're gonna go live in just a minute. I think Shay.
I do have one question. I'm piggybacking off of what Mark said. Does everyone have the full script so that you know when your question is coming up? If you just have, because Jordana is no longer going to be introducing anyone. So does everyone have their full script up so that they know when they need to jump in and not just their questions in front of them?
I do.
Jordana will jump in to say, Mark, you're next if we need to. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
If needed.
Jordana, obviously, if necessary, you'll do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Come on,
So
thank you.
everyone not speaking, camera and mic off. Everyone speaking, mics off when it's not your turn to speak. And Gerard, you can start sharing the slide and the music.
Alrighty, we'll start broadcasting shortly.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Sherry Goldberg, Chair of the CRC, the Government Affairs Division of the Jewish Federation. Together, we are with the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey and the American Jewish Committee tonight, and we are proud sponsors of tonight's Congressional Candidates Forum. As Jewish communal leaders, we believe in the importance of civic engagement and hearing from candidates for public office on issues of concern to our community. What makes tonight different from other forums is that the questions we'll be asking the candidates are framed through a Jewish lens. We are a diverse people in terms of our political views and Jewish religious affiliation, but we are all inspired by the same Jewish values and care deeply about core issues like the US-Israel relationship and the rise of hate and anti-Semitism, and the Jewish imperative to care for the communities most vulnerable. Together with our partners, we've developed a list of questions which will be asked by representatives from all three organizations. Due to the limited time we have tonight with each candidate, we've asked them to deliver a short opening statement and to limit their answers for each question to 2 minutes. There are many questions we won't have time to ask tonight, including questions that some of you submitted through the registration page. Please know that we are sending those questions to the candidates for written replies, and we'll be sending you a compiled list of answers through email in the days ahead. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, who represents New Jersey's 11th District in Congress. First elected in 2018, Representative Sherrill sits on the House Armed Services Committee and the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, where she chairs the subcommittee on the environment. She's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and spent almost 10 years of active duty in Europe and the Middle East. She received her law degree from Georgetown University, eventually joining the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey. There, she helped develop programs to develop trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve, and help people leaving prison to gain employment, housing, and education. Representative Sherrill lives in Montclair with her husband and 4 children. Congresswoman, the floor is yours for opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry, for the warm introduction, and thank you to Jordana Horn-Gordon, Greater Metro West Elections 2020 Chair, Linda Scherzer, Director of the Community Relations Committee, and to the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West New Jersey, the Northern New Jersey Jewish Federation, and the AJC for setting up this forum. I wish we could all be together in person. It's always so nice to see you and join with the Federation community, but I'm so glad we've been able to do this. I also wanted to thank the Jewish Federations and AJC for their leadership during this pandemic. My heart goes out to every New Jerseyan who's suffering right now because of the pandemic. So many of us know someone who is sick or who's lost their life or a loved one to this virus, who has lost their job or can't get out to the grocery store to buy food or other basic necessities. I know we share this pain as a community and have come together in so many different ways to support each other. This community has done so much during this time to help our neighbors, whether it's through donations of PPE, volunteerism, or helping agencies with financing in order to stay open during these times. I've always respected the idea of Tikkun Olam, and I have thought of that so often in the last months. It's going to be up to all of us to repair the world so that we can all heal and that hopefully our children will see a different, better world after. During the pandemic, I've held roundtables and telephone town halls with thousands of constituents covering unemployment, small business, mental health, food insecurity, nursing home and senior care, and I've heard from parents of children with developmental disabilities. These conversations have been critical for me as I've worked on several pieces of legislation and bipartisan initiatives to address the pandemic. These conversations have only heightened my gratitude for the work your organizations have been modeling. That principle of repairing the world has never been more evident than it has been during this crisis. This group has seen the need in our community and taken tangible actions to help. I was thrilled to see this in action even before the pandemic when I visited Metro West's sister community at Kibbutz Erez in Israel last year. I was deeply impressed by the spirit of innovation, collaboration, and focus on service to others when I visited this community in Israel. It was such a meaningful example of why Israel and the United States are so connected. This practice that I saw during my visit, lifting each other up, caring for those among us who are affected by tragedy or circumstance, it's so important, particularly during this health crisis. I've been so grateful for the work this community has done during this time, both here and in Israel. I've always been a proud supporter of Israel, and I'm so proud of the work I've done in Congress to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. We have reaffirmed our security relationship with Israel and seen huge diplomatic developments that strengthen Israel's position in the Middle East. In fact, my visit to Kibbutz Erez in Israel gave real examples of why our security relationship is so important. Erez is on the border with Gaza, and I met mothers who told distressing accounts of scrambling to make sure their children were safe during rocket attacks. Those stories brought home to me the tangible impact of the work we've done in Congress to ensure Israel's safety. I'm also a proud co-sponsor of the Expanding Medical Partnerships with Israel to Lessen Dependence on China Act, which would empower Israel and the United States to work together to fight this virus. The COVID-19 pandemic is truly global, and international medical cooperation is more important now than ever. Our security partnership with Israel is invaluable, and I've worked during my first term to strengthen that relationship. I'm proud that my bipartisan legislation with Republican Representative Joe Wilson to purchase Iron Dome batteries for the U.S. Army was signed into law and just delivered recently so we can keep our service members overseas safe. I know I've said this already, but it bears repeating. This community has been such a valued partner to me during my time in Congress. Your voices have been so important as issues come up, whether it's issues of criminal justice or foreign policy, and I'm so glad to have you all as partners at this time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. My name's Jordana Horn-Gordon, and I'm representing the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. The pandemic has had a profound impact on our society, creating an unprecedented health and economic crisis while fundamentally altering our societal norms. For Jewish federations and our partner beneficiary agencies, the consequences have been no less drastic. So what should Congress be doing to support Americans who are still out of work and in danger of losing their homes? And what do you propose to support the nonprofit sector?
Well, that is a great question. I was sitting in a briefing in the House on March 12th. That was the last day Congress was in regular session before the coronavirus. And actually, coincidentally, the last day my kids have been in-person school. As I was sitting in a briefing on the national stockpile, I realized it was wholly inadequate. So with a bipartisan group of members of the House, I wrote to the president. I said he needed to utilize the Defense Production Act to make sure we're using the full might of the American industrial base. Had we done that, we could have immediately cut down on cases with PPE gear and ventilators. And we followed with contact tracing and testing. Kids are not in school, businesses are closing, New Jerseyans are still hurting. And I put that down to this president's inability to handle the crisis. The White House now has more new cases than Taiwan, New Zealand, and Vietnam combined. So we need another COVID relief bill. The legislation we passed in the spring only addresses a small portion of the problems everyday Americans still face now in October. The chair of the Federal Reserve announced that too little support would lead to a weak recovery, creating unnecessary hardship for households and businesses. Even in the time when the CARES Act money has run out and we've failed to pass a new piece of legislation, we've seen that impact on our economy, businesses closing, and people struggling. In recent weeks, I've been urging leaders in my own party to pass a bill that can garner bipartisan support. It's just not enough to pass relief bills in the House if they go to die in the Senate. One of the key priorities is additional support for our small businesses and nonprofit community. Through the CARES Act, we were able to provide $530 million through the Paycheck Protection Program to the 11th District. I've heard from members of the community, including leaders of local nonprofits, about how important that support has been, but it's not enough. In addition to more support through PPP, I've signed on to bipartisan legislation to expedite the PPP loan forgiveness program for businesses and nonprofits taking loans under $150,000 to provide forgiveness to those businesses upon completion of a one-page SBA form. Bipartisan legislation, I've also signed under bipartisan legislation that will allow small businesses and nonprofits with under 100 employees who've seen revenues decline at least 50% to apply for a second PPP loan. and bipartisan legislation to provide loans covering 6 months of payroll and operating expenses to businesses and nonprofits with under 5,000 employees. In addition to co-sponsoring these bills, I've strongly advocated to House leadership about the critical need for an expansion of PPP, including for nonprofits, in the next coronavirus relief package. I was very pleased that both the Senate GOP proposal, the HEALS Act, and our House Democrats bill, the HEROES Act, included a second round of funding for PPP and an expansion of PPP eligibility for all 501c organizations.
Thank you. Mark Peroff, representing the American Jewish Committee, has our next question.
Unmute myself. My name is Mark Peroff. I'm participating tonight as a representative of the American Jewish Committee, on which I serve as the first vice president of Metro New Jersey region of AJC, the American Jewish Committee. As you're well aware, anti-Semitism and hate crimes against Jews have been on the rise in this country. Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories are also spreading exponentially online, including some like QAnon, which have gone from the fringes to the mainstream. Even in our own districts, white nationalistic groups' recruitment flyers are circulating freely. A ringleader of QAnon was recently arrested in Berkeley Heights, and the Proud Boys' emblematic black and yellow flag has been spotted at recent demonstrations in Wayne and Hapicon. What actions do you think should be elected, or should you be elected? What actions would you personally take to combat anti-Semitism specifically, and more generally to protect people living in America from discrimination and hate crimes?
I'll talk about what I've done and intend to do, but it has, the growing scourge of anti-Semitism has been really scary to see. And I was just talking to someone on my team about how concerned we were. And what I had said is, this is unfortunately like a cancer that we are going to have to work incredibly hard to root out, because as we see in other countries and have seen over time, unfortunately, once something like this takes root, it rears its ugly head every so often. And so we're really going to have to work very, very hard now to kind of tamp this down. I was just on a Zoom call earlier today with a local group doing phone banking. And somehow I guess we had put the number out widely. And I log on to the Zoom call, and in the block where people's faces are was a swastika for someone. So I immediately start texting my team and said, what's going on? And they said, okay, we've gotten them out of the group. They can't re-enter. Well, unfortunately that, I said my piece and then I had to move on to another meeting. Evidently after I got off, unfortunately, some more people from that group had been on. So it is, I can't say if they're from New Jersey or not. I'd like to think they're not, but we don't know that. And we've just seen this growing. And it's something that many of us in Congress have been very, very concerned about. I've spoken up on the need to combat this. I've joined Democrats and Republicans in Congress to take action at the federal level. I've stood with and listened to our local communities on how we can work together to stem hate, and I'll continue to do that. I'm a member of the bipartisan House Anti-Semitism Task Force, and I'm proud that the entire New Jersey delegation is part of that group. Just this week, I joined members of the New Jersey delegation led by Congressman Gottheimer on a letter to FBI Director Wray regarding white supremacist groups, including the Proud Boys in New Jersey. I was incredibly concerned to see the Proud Boys have not been strongly denounced by the Republican Party. They were out at a rally in Parsippany right here in our district, and it's upsetting that we simply haven't heard enough, including from my opponent, about denouncing their presence. The rise of white nationalism is incredibly concerning, and not enough is being done to confront it. This is something another member I serve with, Alyssa Slotkin, is a member from Michigan, where we've all seen what's been going on in that state. She sits on the Homeland Security Committee and has been talking about these groups and really, I think, been sort of, a lone voice shouting about how dangerous this is, and finally it's picking up more momentum. At the beginning of my term, I released a statement condemning anti-Semitism and urged all caucus members to denounce anti-Semitic tropes. I also voted in March of 2019 to condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, and other forms of bigotry. We also know, beyond simply condemning it, how important it is, how important education is. So I've co-sponsored legislation to teach the horrors of the Holocaust to our students. I was deeply disturbed to read the results of a January 2020 Pew Research Center study that found that fewer half of American adults know the number of Jews murdered in the Holocaust. I've supported legislation to address this head on. I proudly co-sponsored the Never Again Education Act to expand educational programming at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum that engages in prospective and current teachers and educational leaders on the history of the Holocaust. I also introduced bipartisan legislation with Republican Representative Scott Dixon from Colorado to establish a study abroad program for high school students to allow them to study in Normandy to further Holocaust and World War II education. These are not our values. These have never been our values. I'm fighting hard because I know who we are. I know the majority of people believe deeply in our values. And that's what I'm fighting for. And that's why I'm fighting so hard to hold this seat in the 11th, because I'm incredibly concerned about this. I'm concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism. I'm concerned about the rise of conspiracy theories moving from the fringe into the mainstream. I've held hearings in Congress last fall as chairman of the subcommittee on investigations and oversight in the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology on deep fakes and disinformation. Technology is advancing faster than ever, and our government is failing to keep up. Companies like Facebook and Twitter play an undisputably important role in our democracy. So we have to continue to work to find all the ways that we can root this out. Because right now I feel like we are a little flat-footed in this fight. As far as what I'm doing to protect people here, I've worked hard to get more UASC money here to protect our houses of worship, and I'll continue to do that as well. But this is going to be, I'm afraid, an ongoing fight for at least the next several years.
Thank you.
Mark Zamek with the Jewish Federation of North.
Thank you. My name is Mark Zamek, and I'm a proud lay professional with the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. When President Trump became president, he publicly pulled out of the JCPOA, better known as the Iran deal, without offering an alternative plan. If elected president, Vice President Biden has said that if Iran does return to compliance, he will rejoin the JCPOA. Do you think that this Iran deal is the right way to prevent Iran's path for a nuclear weapon? And if not, what specifically should the United States do to contain Iran?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you something that has been so concerning to me about this administration, certainly with respect to Iran, certainly with respect to other states within the Middle East and other areas where we have allies and foes. This president does not have a strategy. He doesn't have a long-term view of what our goals, the US goals are and should be in the future. He doesn't take always into account our allies and what we need to be doing in the region. And by that, I just mean we look now at a situation where Iran's power in the region seems stronger than ever. And why do I say that? Well, they bombed Saudi oil fields. That went largely unaddressed. Then they were harassing ships in the Straits of Hormuz, including allies like Japan. And when we put out intelligence saying this is Iran, Japan said they don't believe our intelligence, not because Japan didn't believe our intelligence. Japan did not want to get engaged in our fight. They didn't trust us to be good allies. They didn't trust us to have a good strategy. We killed Soleimani. I don't think anybody was crying any tears for that or thought that was, in and of itself a problem. But it was problematic in the sense we didn't have a strategy. Before the death of Soleimani, there were huge riots throughout Iran. really against some of the economic injustice going on there, and the populace was really rising up. I wouldn't say, I can't say whether they were going to overthrow the government. I wouldn't go that far, certainly, but huge riots in the street against the government. After we killed Soleimani, they consolidated behind the Iranian government. We don't have any friends really left. If I can't say we had friends, but we don't have people to negotiate with in Iran right now, because all of the people we negotiated with on the initial JCPOA, of course, when we unilaterally pulled out, got incredibly burned. So now there's no one left who wants to really, has regards the U.S. as a trusting negotiating partner. You also would want to have seen them draw down on their nuclear weapons production. We've not seen significant moves to that effect. You would want to see more stability in the Middle East. We almost got kicked out of Iraq after that. It's just been sort of a constant chaos in the region without a lot of perceivable gains. And all along, we have Iran exporting weapons to terrorists throughout the region, notably to support Gaza, right on the border of Israel. So it's really been striking how the lack of a strategy in Iran with respect to Iran has been so damaging to the region and our power and influence in the region. I'm not sure that there's much of a JCPOA to re-enter at this point. We could discuss that. I think the first thing we have to do before even getting there is reassert our alliances in the region, show that we are a steady partner with allies, broad and sweeping alliances, not just in the Middle East, but throughout Europe. I think we need to, we've had a go it alone strategy there as well, which has had the effect of making us look very weak, especially, like I said, when allies like Japan say they don't believe our intelligence, or when Saudis bombed and we kind of offered to go and help, and they say, really, we'd rather you not right now. It's really our power in the region is at a striking ebb, and that's not helpful to U.S. interests. It's certainly not helpful, I think, Israeli interests. So that is something that I think the first thing to do is just going to have to be to reassert alliances throughout the region and show a steady hand.
Congresswoman, I'm sorry to jump in. I'm as the timekeeper, I'm letting you know that we have 3 more questions in only about 7 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try to be judicious. I'm going to throw it back to Mark Peroff at AJC. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next month, the U.S. Supreme Court will be hearing arguments challenging the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. If the ACA is overturned, more than 29 million Americans with pre-existing conditions could lose their health insurance. Medicaid coverage for millions could be more affected. What are the key priorities that you have in mind to both reform the overall healthcare system and address the serious healthcare disparity issues that are underserved in communities and populations?
Another great question. I'll try to be more brief. During my time in office, I've held 22 town hall meetings in the past 22 months. Before that, I met with hundreds of residents, seniors, families, veterans, small business owners at roundtables and community events while running for Congress previously. And what the people of NJ11 have made very clear is they don't want to see the Affordable Care Act repealed. They'd rather see it strengthened. They want a representative who will stand up against any attempts to take away their health care. Donald Trump and my opponent offer no alternative plan. They've had 11 years to come up with an alternative to the Affordable Care Act, but instead of coming up with a solution, they're in court right now trying to strike down the entire Affordable Care Act. The Wall Street Journal, the AARP, and the American Cancer Society have all said that if the ACA is struck down, it will leave millions of Americans unable to get health care coverage. The rate of uninsured Americans will go up 65%. It will threaten 15 million people covered by the Medicaid expansion, force 12 million seniors to pay more for prescription drugs because of the donut hole that existed before the ACA, and millions of young Americans under 26 would lose coverage under their parents' insurance. It's also striking that since the dawn of the Affordable Care Act, personal bankruptcies in this country have gone down 50%. That's striking. So what I want to do is build upon the gains, not take down the Affordable Care Act, but build upon the gains of the Affordable Care Act. I would stop the sabotaging that this administration is currently doing by marketing the Affordable Care Act. So we do have the mass of people which you need for insurance. I'm supportive of measures such as letting our current Medicare system negotiate drug prices similar to how the VA does. I'd like Congress to explore a fiscally responsible way to allow certain individuals older than 55 to buy into Medicare. I helped pass landmark legislation that passed in the House to lower the cost of prescription drugs by allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Once they negotiate those prices, they'll be offered to the private insurers, driving your prices down. I'll end there. There's several other things that I think we could do to really improve that. I'll just end there by saying New Jersey 11 has one of the best life sciences ecosystems in the nation. So it's critical that as we drive costs down, we're still pouring money into research and development for the fantastic pharmaceutical and drugs that we have, from curing cancer to the common cold. But certainly driving pharmaceutical costs down and medical costs down is my goal while supporting the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, Mark Zomick, you're coming in.
So this, I guess, this is the question that's going to take all night to answer, and I guess you only have a couple seconds. But the country has become so fiercely partisan and divisive. I'm wondering how you propose to restore faith in our political system and reach across the aisle in the spirit of bipartisanship to tackle some of the nation's problems.
So I will, in a few seconds, say that I actually regard this as my job. Coming from a district like mine, a district with very, very progressive people, very, very conservative people, I think it's my job to find those ways to bring us together. A lot of that does with reminding people of our core values, that we all believe in certain core values, and we need to build on those. I think a lot of it is not demonizing people on the other side, finding those people that you can work with. I have had 75% of the bills I've led with bipartisan support. 77% of my votes are bipartisan. I think it's looking first to what the needs of the district and the country are, and not always to partisan leadership decisions. For example, right now, I've been very upfront in saying that we have to pass a bipartisan compromise on COVID-19. It's not enough that we pass the HEROES Act in the House. We need to pass bipartisan legislation, and pushing my leadership in a direction to come up with that bipartisan solution.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for outlining your positions tonight and for all of your support these last 2 years on issues of importance to our community. We wish you the best of luck with your campaign. We're going to take a 2-minute break now, and then we'll reconvene for a discussion with Rosemary Becchi. Thank you. Everybody.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, and welcome back. My name is Ariella Novak, and I am the proud director of the Community Relations Committee for the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. Welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce Rosemary Becchi, the Republican candidate for the U.S. Congress for New Jersey's 11th district. Rosemary has more than 25 years experience in public policy and the law, and has built a reputation as a leading tax policy advocate. She is widely known for founding and leading Jersey First, a nonprofit organization to educate and advocate for policy solutions to lower taxes and reduce government spending. It was during her time as tax counsel for the U.S. Senate Finance Committee that she co-authored the 529 College Savings Program used by parents across the country to help their children pay for college. She and her husband Scott have 3 daughters. Rosemary, before I ask you to give some opening remarks, I want to tell you a little bit about us. As you know, there are 3 organizations represented here tonight: the Jewish Federation of Northern and Greater Metro West New Jersey, and the American Jewish Committee. We are a diverse community in terms of our political views and Jewish religious affiliation, but we are all inspired by the same Jewish values and care deeply about core issues like the US-Israel relationship, the rise of hate and anti-Semitism, and the Jewish imperative to care for the communities most vulnerable. We appreciate you being with us tonight to address the concerns of utmost importance to us. The floor is now yours for opening remarks. Thank you again for joining us.
Oh, good evening, and thank you for having me. As you indicated, my name is Rosemary Becchi. I'm a wife, a mother of 3 daughters, and I'm also a tax lawyer. I have been fighting my entire career for lower taxes and less regulation. I did have the great honor early in my career to work in the United States Senate. I worked for then Chairman Roth of Delaware. And while I was at the Senate Finance Committee, I co-authored the 529 College Savings Plans. It's actually something near and dear to my heart. I was one of those kids that graduated with over $100,000 in debt. So I really knew the difference that good policy like that could make in the lives of families. And I'm very proud to say that millions of Americans save for college today on a tax-free basis using the 529 accounts. And it's something that didn't happen overnight. It's something I worked on for many years and had to work in a very bipartisan way. So as I said, I'm very proud that millions of Americans save for college in a 529. But that's why I want to go to Washington, because I want to work for New Jersey families. I think you deserve somebody in Washington that is going to put people over the politics. And that's not what you have right now. My opponent promised you all she was going to Washington to be a different kind of Democrat, and she hasn't. She has voted with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. And I think you deserve more. As I indicated before, I think we need somebody there that can roll up their sleeves and help get this economy restarted. I also believe that we need somebody there that's going to fight for our safety and security and be an advocate for our veterans, as well as fight for those amongst us that are disabled, as well as our children. So as I said before, I want to go to Washington to put the people over the politics. And I'm happy to open it up and start to have a conversation and answer your questions. But I want to thank you again for having me here this evening.
Thank you so much. My name's Jordana Horn-Gordon, and I represent the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. The pandemic has had a profound impact on our society, creating unprecedented health and economic crisis while fundamentally altering our societal norms. For Jewish federations and our partner beneficiary agencies, the consequences have been no less drastic. So what should Congress be doing to support Americans who are still out of work and in danger of losing their homes? What do you propose to support the nonprofit sector?
So first and foremost, I think our representatives belong back in Washington right now to get some help for our New Jersey families. Right now, what is happening in Washington is nothing more than partisan politics. We need all sides to come together and help those that are unemployed, help get our businesses restarted and get them the liability protection that they desperately need, as well as help them get some of the PPP funding to help provide them with the liquidity that they need for their businesses. So that's first and foremost. Another thing that I also think is important and important to the nonprofit sector, it's something that I've been working on here in the campaign. You know, throughout this pandemic, it has certainly highlighted the importance of taking care of those amongst us that are most vulnerable. I have a daughter that was born without her esophagus connected to her stomach. And she's had a lifetime of health issues as well as education issues. And this pandemic has really shined a light on how vulnerable our children are, and our children need the services to help them through these difficult times. I also have a nephew who is autistic. He's nonverbal and hasn't received many of the services he would otherwise be entitled to. And in working throughout the campaign and working with other mothers, we pulled together a coalition and worked with the Special Olympics and drafted a Bill of Rights for the disabled. Because again, I think it's so critically important that we remember and give a voice to those amongst us that are most vulnerable.
Okay, Mark Paroff now from the AJC. You're muted, Mark.
I believe you have the wrong mark.
Okay. Anti-Semitism and hate crimes against Jews have been on the rise in this country. Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories are also spreading exponentially online, including some like QAnon, which have gone from the fringes to the mainstream. In our own districts, white nationalist recruitment flyers are circulating freely. A ringleader of QAnon was recently arrested in Berkeley Heights, and the Proud Boys' emblematic black and yellow flag has been spotted at recent demonstrations in Wayne and Hapatcong. What actions, should you be elected to Congress, would you personally take to combat anti-Semitism specifically, and more generally to protect people living in America from discrimination and hate crimes?
So to me, anti-Semitism cannot be tolerated. And we have to announce all hate groups, both on the right and on the left, absolutely. And you know, I've seen in my career the difference that you can make in the lives of people in bringing people together. I ran for a very long time, for more than 10 years, an organization that worked with disadvantaged youth. Most of the kids that we worked were African American kids. And we got them involved in community service. And we ran a number of programs that were based on community service. So getting them involved in after-school programs, as well as internships, job training, and all sorts of things, and built real bridges to help them. And really, it was all about paying it forward and getting people involved in the community and working together. And I think that that is so critically important, because as we see, you know, racism continues to exist here in this country. It exists in this district. some of the kids that are here that are part of the program that I ran for many years are actually took time off from their jobs and came and are helping with my campaign and have gotten stopped in neighborhoods for putting literature on people's homes because their skin was a different color. And that deeply concerns me, and we have to stop it, and we can't tolerate that. We've got to learn to work together and find solutions to these problems. And I think it's so critically important that we do that, and we stand up and push back against these organizations that just foster hate.
Thank you. Now we have Fran Weingast from the Jewish Federation, Northern New Jersey.
Hi, thank you for joining us tonight. In 2016, President Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, better known as the Iran deal, without offering an alternative plan. If elected president, Joe Biden has said that if Iran returns to strict compliance with the nuclear deal, he'll rejoin the JCPOA. Do you think the Iran deal is the right way to prevent Iran's path to a nuclear weapon? And if not, what should the US do and the world do to contain the rogue nation?
So I do not feel that the Iran deal is the way to the future, and I would not rejoin it. I do agree with President Trump in pulling out of that deal. Look, we need to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. And we have to, institute policies that ensure that that doesn't happen, including the most recent sanctions that we've put on Iran. Because again, the harm that could occur if they've got, a way or a path towards getting nuclear weapons. And so I think that has to be, the primary goal here.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mark Peroff, and I'm here representing the American Jewish Committee as a member of the Board of Directors of Metro West. And I'd like to ask you the following question. Next month, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments challenging the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. If the act is overturned, more than 29 million Americans with pre-existing conditions could lose their health insurance. Medicaid coverage for millions more could be affected. What are the priorities that you have in mind to both reform the overall health system and address serious health disparity issues in underserved communities and populations?
So thank you for that great question. And first and foremost, what I want to say, and as I described to you before, my daughter was born without her esophagus connected to her stomach. So as you can imagine, I know everything there is about pre-existing conditions. And I've seen what a birth defect like that can lead to. And so there is absolutely no chance that I would ever vote for anything or allow an instance where we don't cover pre-existing conditions. I am adamant about that and feel very strongly. But what I also don't want is a government-run healthcare system. I truly believe in open and free markets. I believe in transparency in healthcare. Again, I've had a lot of personal experience living the healthcare system, and it can be very, very overwhelming. And again, I feel that the answer isn't in a government-run system, because what a government-run system will lead to is a demise of our employer-provided insurance. I think our employer-provided system is phenomenal, and we need to do more to encourage that. And I also worry that a government-run healthcare system will lead to, a decreased coverage in Medicare. And I also worry about the cost. And it will ultimately lead to the doubling of our taxes, which is not something I support. So again, what I'd like to see is more transparency and more openness around pricing and things of that nature, so that we have a more free market healthcare system.
Thank you. Now we're going to go back to Fran.
Hi. Politics in this country have become fiercely partisan and bitterly divisive. How do you propose to restore faith in our political system and reach across the aisle in a spirit of bipartisanship to tackle our nation's problems?
So I had, as I described early in my earlier remarks, I had the great honor of working in the United States Senate, and I worked for the late, great Chairman Roth of Delaware, who very much believed in bipartisanship, and very much worked with those across the aisle. And so I learned early on really how that process works. He worked with the late, great Senator Moynihan, and we were very successful in getting a lot of things done in those years. And I think we've got to go back to those days, go back to learning to work with each other. And a lot of that is remembering who you work for. It's about working for the people and the people of this district rather than the politics. And it's about finding solutions and meeting in the middle. Again, you know, as I shared with you, when I wrote the 529 college savings plans, it's not something that happened overnight. And in fact, when those were first enacted, they were taxable accounts. And it took more than 10 years of working together in a very bipartisan way and taking into account people's concerns and thoughts and working together in order to get those accounts to look what they do today. And I do think that it's a great model for legislation. It's something that's continued to evolve over the years and continues to meet people's needs. And I do think that's a big part of this, is making sure that you're open to the flexibility and making sure that you're looking out for the people of the district. And so I think that is, you know, is incredibly critical to fostering bipartisanship.
Thank you. One last question and a chance to set the record straight. During this campaign, has there been any information that's come out about you, and if applicable, and not applicable here, sorry, your voting record, either by your opponent or another source, that you would like to have the opportunity to clarify here tonight?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I just want to re-emphasize, you know, that my background, in that I really feel strongly that, you know, my experience in working with people in a bipartisanship way is so critical. I think we have really important issues that we're facing here. We have got to get this economy restarted, and we've got to be about looking for ideas and solutions. I welcome you to go to my website. I put out an economic plan that I spent a considerable amount of time this summer working with small businesses as well as medium and large businesses, and talking to people throughout the district and taking in ideas about how do we restart this economy? How do we get going again? And how do we help our businesses grow from here? I think that's critically important. And I also think it's critically important. Another issue that I hear a lot about is safety and security. It is something that throughout this district is very, very important to people. And you know, I'm very proud that the PBA has endorsed me, as well as the state troopers have endorsed me. I think people look across to New York City and their inability to go to work. or go to shows or things of that and worry about the crime that's happening there, and really want to make sure that their families are safe and secure. And so I think that is also a very important issue. But I'm happy to open it up and answer any other questions, but I really appreciate your time this evening.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Rosemary, for outlining your positions tonight and for taking the time to join our community. We wish you the best of luck with your campaign. And to everyone who's watching, thank you very much for joining our Congressional Candidates Forum and for making time for tonight's rescheduled conversations with Congresswomen Sherrill and Rosemary Becchi. As you may know, it's October 19th. We're now 15 days out until the general election. November 3rd is the final date to get your ballot in the mail or to put it in a secure drop box around the state. So please make sure to fill out your ballots, send them back as soon as possible, and have your voices heard. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good night.